Have you ever sat across the table from your grown child, maybe sharing a quiet cup of coffee, only to hear something that didn't quite sit right with you? A comment so sharp it twisted your stomach just a little, but you let it go, didn't you? Because they're your child, because you love them. You remember holding them in your arms, watching them take their first steps, helping them through every scraped knee and broken heart. You've seen them grow into adults with dreams, doubts, and opinions. So when they say something cold or cutting, it's easy to rationalize. Maybe they're just tired. Maybe you're too sensitive. Maybe it wasn't meant that way. But what if I told you some of those words, those subtle, stinging phrases aren't random? What if those words are signals, warnings, that something in the relationship has shifted, that love might still be there, but respect has started to fade? And the cost is your peace of mind. Now listen, I'm not talking about the usual disagreements. Every parent and grown child will have them. That's just life. We all feel frustrated sometimes. We all misunderstand each other now and then. But I'm talking about patterns, about certain words that show a mindset, a deeper problem. Words that don't just bruise, they erode your dignity. Words that steal your peace slowly, like a drip wearing down stone. And this video isn't about walking away from your children. It's about standing up for yourself. It's about seeing clearly when a line's been crossed and having the strength to protect yourself, even if it's from someone you raised with your whole heart. Let me ask you something personal. Has your son or daughter ever looked at you and said, "You were never really there for me"? Bitterness in their voice, years after you worked 2 jobs, sacrificed sleep, missed meals, just to keep them safe and give them a better life? It hurts, doesn't it? Cuts right through, makes you question everything. But here's what I want you to hold on to. No, you weren't perfect, but you gave what you had. And if someone can't see that, if they refuse to even try, then your peace matters more than their blame. So let's talk about these phrases. The ones that don't just hurt, but reveal something toxic beneath the surface. The first one is this: "You owe me." Maybe they don't say it outright. Maybe it's buried in comments like, "After everything I've been through because of you," or "I wouldn't be struggling if you had done a better job." But the message is clear. You owe them your time, your money, your guilt. It's like they're holding your love hostage, demanding payment for a debt you never signed up for. And that isn't love. That's manipulation. Because love from a grown child should come from gratitude, not debt. It's okay for them to ask hard questions. It's okay for them to be honest about pain. But when they use your past as a weapon, when they try to control you with guilt, that's no longer a healthy bond. That's emotional blackmail. You don't owe your adult children your retirement fund. You don't owe them constant emotional energy, especially when it's never met with care or appreciation. If your child is only reaching for you to make you feel guilty, then that's not family. That's control. The second phrase you need to watch out for is, "You're just old. You wouldn't understand." That one's not loud. It doesn't scream, but it cuts deep in a different way. It dismisses you. It makes your wisdom invisible. Suddenly, all those decades of life, wars, heartaches, raising children, building homes, losing loved ones, they mean nothing because to them, you're just old. But let me tell you something from the heart. Being older doesn't make you irrelevant. It makes you invaluable. You've survived what many couldn't. You've carried pain, love, faith, and forgiveness through a lifetime. And when your own child shrugs that off with one careless line, that's not them being modern. That's them being disrespectful. You deserve to be heard. Your voice matters. Your thoughts, your memories, your perspective, they're treasures. And if someone you raised forgets that, you don't have to fight to prove your worth. You just have to protect it. That might mean pulling back, not because you're bitter, but because you're wise enough to know when you're being diminished. Your love is still there, but so is your dignity. And then there's this third phrase, the one that sounds independent, but often hides something darker. "If you don't help me, I'll figure it out without you." Now, at first, that might sound strong, self-reliant, like they're taking control of their own life. But listen closely to the tone. Is it maturity or a threat? Is it confidence or manipulation? Many times it's not a statement of growth. It's an ultimatum, a pressure tactic, one that forces you to choose between helping or losing them. And as a parent, that's terrifying. That fear that they'll cut you off, stop calling, disappear from your life. That fear can make you cave again and again. But that's not love. That's fear. And love never demands out of fear. I need your help, and I appreciate it. That's love. Give it to me or I'll walk. That's control. If your child is only affectionate when they need something, if their kindness disappears when your wallet's closed or your answer is no, then what you have isn't a relationship. It's a transaction. And dear friend, you deserve so much more than that. You've built your life over decades. You've earned your peace, your rest, your moments of quiet joy. You should not spend this chapter walking on eggshells or answering emotional ransom notes. You should be surrounded by warmth, not weighed down by guilt. I know, letting go, even just emotionally, feels wrong, especially with your own child. But sometimes the kindest thing you can do is say enough. Sometimes the strongest act of love is protecting yourself. Because in doing so, you teach others how to treat you. You remind them that even a parent has boundaries. Even love needs respect. You're not abandoning your children when you draw that line. You're reminding them that your love is a gift, not a currency, that aging doesn't make you less, that you still matter and always will. And I promise you, when you choose your dignity, when you stop tolerating disrespect just because it's coming from your own blood, you'll feel lighter, braver, freer. But we're not done yet. There are still more phrases to uncover, phrases that, once you recognize them, can save you from years of unnecessary pain. Because when someone you raise starts treating you like an afterthought, when their words feel more like weapons than warmth, that isn't just painful, it's soul-tiring. And if that person is your own child, that heartbreak runs deep. So let's keep going, because what we're learning here might just change everything. The next one, it's this: you're the reason I turned out this way. Now look, I know parenting is hard. No parent gets it perfect. Not one. Every mom and dad has regrets, moments they wish they could do over. That's part of being human. But when your adult child constantly blames you for who they are today, refuses to take responsibility for their own choices, that's not healing. That's blame. And it's a burden no parent should carry forever. You might hear it when they're hurting, when life's not going their way. If you'd been more supportive, I wouldn't have anxiety. If you hadn't done this or that, I'd be better off. And because you're the heir parent, those words hit you hard, make you question every sacrifice, every no you said in love, every night you stayed up worrying. But here's the truth: you don't have to carry that anymore. You did your best, you gave your heart, and they've had time, years, to make their own choices. If they're still dragging you through the past every time things go wrong, if they can't talk to you without turning it into a courtroom drama from 20 years ago, then maybe, just maybe, you need to step back. Not because you've stopped loving them, but because you love yourself enough not to keep being hurt this way. Now, the next phrase might come out during heated arguments, or sometimes even in a moment of cold calm, and it's this one: you never really loved me. If you've ever heard your child say this to you, I want you to stop and take a deep breath right now, because I know that cuts deep. That one sentence can feel like someone took everything you've ever done, every hug, every meal cooked, every late night waiting for them to come home, and threw it all out the window. But let's be clear, that phrase isn't just hurtful, it's cruel. Love isn't always perfect. And sometimes love doesn't look the way people think it should. Maybe you weren't overly affectionate. Maybe you weren't always available, but you gave what you had. And love isn't measured by grand gestures. It's measured by consistency, by showing up, by sticking around, by making the hard choices even when they weren't appreciated. For someone to erase all of that with one phrase, it's not just unfair. It's a form of emotional attack. It's often used to win an argument, to make you feel so devastated that you give in, apologize, or beg for forgiveness for things you didn't even do. You cannot spend your golden years defending yourself to someone who has chosen to forget your love. If they're willing to weaponize your heart against you, that's not a child seeking healing. It's someone looking to control. And sometimes the strongest act of love is letting go. You don't have to keep proving yourself to someone who already made up their mind. Real love doesn't need to be convinced. It can see even when things aren't perfect. If your child truly loved you, they wouldn't try to rip your heart out with words like that. They wouldn't want to see you cry. They wouldn't want to be the source of your pain. Which brings us to another phrase that reveals so much more than it seems. You're just being dramatic. This one might not sound as cruel at first. It might even be said with a laugh, but make no mistake, it's a form of dismissal. It's a way to silence you, to downplay your feelings, to make you feel like you're overreacting every time you speak your truth. And let's be honest, how many times in life have you been told to quiet down, to toughen up, to not make a fuss, especially as you've gotten older? Maybe you've noticed your opinions don't carry the same weight they once did. People interrupt more. They talk over you. They nod politely, but don't really listen. So when your own child brushes off your feelings with a smug, "You're just being dramatic," it reinforces a painful idea that your emotions don't matter, that your perspective is outdated, that your voice doesn't belong in the conversation. But let me tell you right now, your voice matters more than ever. You've lived, you've learned, you've endured, you've loved. And your perspective isn't dramatic. It's rooted in experience. It's rich with meaning. And when someone, especially someone you raise, tries to make you feel small for expressing your truth, that's not just disrespect, that's silencing. And you do not have to accept that. You deserve to be heard. You deserve to speak without fear of being mocked. And if the people closest to you can't give you that space, you are absolutely within your rights to create space of your own, to step away, to draw that boundary, to say, "No, I will not be dismissed." Because this part of your life, this chapter you're in, is not about pleasing people who don't value you. It's about standing strong in who you are. It's about rediscovering peace, dignity, and joy. It's about living fully without being dragged down by the emotional weight of someone else's immaturity. So as we keep talking through these phrases, I want you to remember, every single one of these examples isn't just about words. They're about patterns. Patterns of disrespect, patterns of control, patterns of manipulation. And the moment you start to recognize them for what they are, you begin to take your power back. This is not about turning your back on your family. It's about turning your face toward yourself, toward the self-respect, the peace, and the clarity you deserve. You're not too old to set boundaries. You're not too old to start fresh. You're not too old to say, "That's enough." And if any part of your heart is aching while hearing these words, if you're remembering a conversation or a look or a moment that made you feel small, know this, you are not alone. So many parents carry this silent pain, but today you've given yourself permission to name it. And soon we'll talk about the final phrases that truly matter, because they reveal the deepest truths about where you stand and how to move forward with strength. Let's keep going, because the next phrase we need to talk about might seem innocent on the surface, but underneath it carries a message that can quietly erode your sense of value. It's this: "I didn't ask for your opinion." Now, of course, everyone has the right to choose whose advice they follow. Your adult children are allowed to make their own decisions, even ones you may disagree with. That's part of growing up. You know that. You've accepted that. But when your child snaps back at you with a sharp, "I didn't ask," or worse, "No one needs your opinion," it cuts deeper than they probably realize. Because what they're really saying in that moment is that your wisdom doesn't matter, that your voice is no longer welcome, that the years you've spent gathering experience, learning hard lessons, navigating this world, somehow don't count anymore, just because the calendar turned another page. It's a hard thing to face, especially when all you were trying to do was offer some guidance, not because you think you know better, not because you want control, but because you love them, because you care. And when someone shuts that down cold, when they act as if your insight is a burden rather than a blessing, it creates a wedge that doesn't just divide, it isolates. If your child constantly silences you, brushes off your thoughts, or makes you feel like your presence in their life is conditional, based on how quiet you stay or how much you agree with them, that's not mutual respect. That's control. And no parent, no matter how old, deserves to be pushed to the sidelines of their own family. You're allowed to have opinions. You're allowed to speak. And even if they don't take your advice, they should be able to hear it without contempt. A respectful adult child doesn't have to agree with you, but they should always honor your place in their life. If they don't, you need to ask yourself, are you showing up for a relationship that no longer shows up for you? Now we've saved perhaps the most painful phrase for last, and I want to speak on this with care. It's the moment your child says, "You're the one who needs help, not me." Now there's a context where this might be said out of concern. Maybe you've been struggling or they think something is wrong and they want to help. That's one thing, but too often this phrase is used not out of love, but as a deflection, as a way to dodge their own accountability by turning the focus back on you. Let's say you're trying to address an issue. Maybe it's the way they treat you. Maybe it's how they speak to you or how they've been showing up or not showing up in your life. And instead of hearing you out, they say, "You're the one who's crazy. You're the one who needs help. You're overreacting again." That's not care, that's gaslighting. And it's dangerous. Because the moment you start questioning your own reality, your own feelings, your own memory of events, you become vulnerable. You become easier to manipulate. You start shrinking, doubting, apologizing for things you never did wrong. And that's exactly how emotional control works. So let me remind you of something very important. Needing support is human. But being told you need help as a way to silence you, to shame you, or to shift blame, that's not support, that's an attack. And when it comes from your own child, it's even more damaging because they know exactly where your soft spots are. If a conversation leaves you feeling like you're losing your grip on what's true, like you're always the problem, like nothing you say matters unless it aligns with their version of events, you have every right to step back. You are not required to stay emotionally available to someone who uses your love against you. Now, if you're still with me, still listening, still nodding quietly to yourself, I want to tell you something that might feel long overdue. You deserve respect, not just tolerance, not just polite conversation. Real respect, the kind that sees your heart, your effort, your history, the kind that listens when you speak, the kind that honors the fact that you are the reason your child is even here today. And I know some of this has been hard to hear. Maybe it's stirred up old wounds or recent ones. Maybe you've been holding back tears or memories that you don't talk about often. That's okay, because acknowledging these things doesn't make you bitter. It makes you brave. It means you're finally ready to stop carrying the pain quietly. It means you're ready to put yourself first. Not because you've stopped loving your children, but because you've started loving yourself again. So where do you go from here? You start by honoring how you feel. You stop brushing things under the rug just to keep the peace. You give yourself permission to draw lines. Maybe that means fewer phone calls. Maybe that means saying no to last-minute demands. Maybe it means having one final conversation that begins with, "I won't accept being spoken to that way anymore." And maybe in time, they'll come around. Maybe they'll see what they couldn't see before. But even if they don't, you will have chosen dignity over damage. You will have chosen peace over people-pleasing. And that, my friend, is one of the most powerful decisions you can make in this season of life. You've earned your rest. You've earned your voice. And you deserve to spend your years surrounded by people who see your value, not people who question it. If this message has touched something inside you, if it's helped you see your situation a little more clearly, please take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. You never know who else might be reading and feeling the exact same thing. And if you found this helpful, give the video a like and subscribe to Strong Elderly Life. We're here to support you with honest, meaningful conversations that help you stand tall, live well, and love yourself more every single day. Here's to protecting your peace, honoring your worth, and walking forward with strength. Because you are not alone, and you are not powerless. You are a person of experience, of resilience, of deep love, and you deserve a life that reflects that. Here's to living your best life at any age. I'll see you in the next video. Stay strong.